Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Journey of Growth. My name is Dheeraj, and today I have a true OG in the GTM space. His name is Santosh Sharan. Everybody knows about Santosh, but we thought let's bring him on the podcast before he starts his new journey.
Thank you, Dheeraj, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Wonderful, wonderful. As the name of the podcast is Journey of Growth, why don't we start with your journey of growth, Santosh?
Sure. Yeah, so my journey started, I won't go too far into my career, but I was running my own company. I was doing entrepreneurship. I sold my company, and then I joined this small data startup because I thought data was the next big thing and go to market and data was going to take off. And this startup was doing only 9 million, 10 million in revenue after 12 years in operations. And the next 4 years, we grew revenues from 9, 10 million to close to 100 million in ARR. And I got a chance to see tremendous growth. And this company was ZoomInfo. And of course, now it's far bigger and does over $1.5 billion in revenue. But that got me started on the journey of growth. Since then, I realize I enjoy being part of teams that are on their way to transformational growth. I feel like being part of growth is almost fundamental to human existence, right? We all want to grow in whatever we are doing. And when you are part of an environment that's growing, everybody you see the best of human behavior, right? There's a lot of abundance. There's a lot of, everyone's trying to learn. Everybody's trying to share what they learn and solve there's a common purpose. And since then, I've been part of other companies that have done very well. I've been part of several of these, but more notable, I held the Apollo. And then more recently, I held the retention and RB2B. RB2B is special. I just stepped out of the team. We grew. We launched the product in March or April of last year. And by December, we had signed up over 30,000 count and closed over 5 million in revenue. It's on a great growth path this year. Let me take a pause and see if you have follow-up questions.
Yep. I do have a follow-up questions. Before that, for the audience out there, all the platforms or the tools in the GTM space, be it your sales tech or MarTech, you know them. Santosh has been a part of their journey, be it as a teammate or be it as an advisor. So you definitely know the man behind all the powerful platforms in this GTM space. That's why I said he's the true OG. Okay. Santosh, from this answer, we can't put light on each and every platform out there or each and every company out there, but just let's take last 3 companies you've been part of. If in brief, you can just walk us through by the time when you joined the company and by the time you left the company, what was the revenue numbers? If you are okay with sharing with us that, or another thing, what is the playbook that you adopted and what were the things that they were already doing and what changes did you bring into those organizations that worked? If you can just walk us through that, that'd be really great.
Yeah. So because I've done so many of these companies and there are some really strong playbooks. So let me answer your question slightly differently than how you posed. Let me combine all the lessons I've learned. So going back a few companies, each company I've been part of, I tried to get transformational growth. So for instance, at retention, I saw them grow from single digit when I was advising, or maybe 10, 12 million to close to 30 million in 2 years. Prior to that, I saw Contract Out grow from early single digits to closer to 10 million, and so on. Apollo from like 10 million to maybe 30, 35, something in that range, and so on. So a lot of these companies are doing far better now after I left. But here are some of the playbooks. And now remember, when you review playbooks, it's important to know that sales strategy keeps shifting and evolving over time. So what I used when we were growing ZoomInfo, a lot of that may not be relevant today. For instance, we send a ton of bulk emails and outreach, which were pretty dumb outreach. But guess what? It worked. 10 years ago, you could send 500,000 emails and you were guaranteed to get like tens of thousands of like conversions and clicks. And so why wouldn't you do that? Right? And now it simply doesn't work. It will even ruin your reputation. So if I have to pick up a few highlights that worked, programmatic SEO definitely helped multiple of these companies. So if you're in a business where you could create, say, 5 million, 10 million landing pages that is somewhat relevant that your buyers are searching for, and they end up in one of your pages, and then from there, you create a funnel to convert, I would say definitely do that because it doesn't cost anything. Google will take care. Just upload it to Google Webmaster and like you see more traffic coming in. So I'm surprised how many companies don't do programmatic SEO when not all business can do this, but I would say more than half can. If you can figure out, and we can talk more about how to know. But programmatic SEO, the second is, ultimately all go-to-market strategy is the end goal is to capture attention. And I'm a big fan. I only started this recently, probably in the last 12 months, but I'm a big fan of promoting or getting a message out on LinkedIn or any other social network you're part of. So content marketing is also changing, I guess, shape. Figure out the right balance of content marketing, but it's really important to get your word out, get your message out, get more people to know that you exist in whatever shape or form you can do. So one-to-many communication is really important. So that's my second recommendation. And third is do smart outreach. So there's a lot of people just buy tools and they get excited when they see some email IDs or in their ICP and then just send out email. There's more thought that needs to go into reaching out. So those are my three top choices of what companies ought to do.
Understood. But there must be like a playbook. Let's say you adopted in company one, like you said, it didn't work in company two, right? And is it the playbook that completely shifted or approach to adopting that playbook that changed? What do you
No,
think?
so let me tell you. So I'll give you an example. When I did programmatic SEO at ZoomInfo, we went from getting, say, 300 inbound leads a month to 40,000 inbound leads a month. Like within 30 days, 45 days, we went from 300 a month to 40,000 inbound. There were so many inbound leads coming that we needed I had to hire like a team of 15 SDR because you don't know, a bulk of them were not good, right? You need to sort of clean or sort through the good versus bad. Now the same thing I did few years later, and then again few years later. So in the 10-year period, I periodically saw that SEO, the benefit keep dropping. The strategy or playbook was the exact same. I did the exact same thing, right? But then the outcome just keeps dropping. And that's just the nature of strategy. I think David Sachs has this, right? There's the problem with any strategy is as it gets successful, it also gets less effective because more people apply, then the efficacy goes down, right? Because buyers now become used to it. They're looking to give attention to something that's different, right? The same strategy doesn't work anymore. So that would be the case. Obviously, any business that I go into, I try to come up with a entirely new growth strategy that's proprietary, that's unique. And I try as much as possible not to necessarily just do the same thing I did 10 years ago or 5 years ago, because by definition, the efficiency is down. The way to benefit from these strategies is to, look at them as, I guess you can make a variant of it that might work for your buyers.
Understood. Understood. Interesting point. I mean, like you said, strategy, gets eroded over time. Same is happening with the outbound now, right? I run an agency. I see whatever the results I was getting 1 year back or 2 years back, it's drastically dropping every year.
Only.
It's not about dropping mass emails. It's about reaching out to the relevant folks with the relevant messaging. On the other side, the infrastructure is getting costly. The tool blot is there, right? And all the tools that are there are only supporting sellers, right? On the other side, the buyers, the whole psychology has changed, because I think you have been a victim of the same. Whenever you open your inbox, there are 10 and 20 people like me who have been sending you emails and all sound the same, right?
Right.
So
Right.
where do you think the market is going? And if I'm right, you're also building something in that area. So would love to know about it.
That is true. We have almost seen it's almost an end of an era and beginning of a new era. So in the last 10, 15 years, we saw automation of outreach, which was it was actually a good thing. It helped the sellers, but it also helped the buyers cut through. The search cost for the buyers went down, right? Now, somebody did the hard work into matching them to the solution they may be looking for, and they got the email. And then, not all the time, but sometimes it was the right match, right? So everybody benefited. But then 2 or 3 things happened. One, cost of data plummeted. So now everybody could send emails. And because it was free and because it was a strategy that worked, the number of sheer email went up. Now the buyers were finite. It's the same number of buyers, right? The number of hours they have is finite. The attention is finite. But the number of incoming email just like went up quantum more. Also what happened is number of companies in each category, like in each G2 category, has gone up dramatically. So there's just more SaaS company and more emails that are being sent out to a finite number of buyers, right? So it has come to a point where buyers don't want to respond, right? They're just tuning off from the channel itself. So for instance, I not only get emails, I'm also on many of these databases and my mobile number is there. So I get probably 20 unsolicited calls a day that I don't recognize. So to the point where now I send all those calls to voicemail if it's not in my address book, right? And I'm guessing other buyers are doing the same, which is causing like sales process to completely come to a halt. So this is where I feel like sellers have to innovate. Ultimately, we have to move from one channel, outreach in just email, just phone, or any one channel to multi-channel. So you have to attack. Chances of success is much higher if you're going after the buyer on several channels. And if the buyer sees the same individuals, and the best way to create kind of affinity with the buyer is engage with them on socials. So I'll give you an example. I write a lot of LinkedIn content nowadays. So some smart reps have figured out they first engage with my content. I try to respond to anybody that comments, and so they comment, and it seems like it's not ChatGPT generated comment. They put in the effort, right? And then once I've engaged, now the next time they send a email in my inbox, I correlate. I have a level of recognition. I don't automatically put them in spam, right? Now I pay attention. So these are strategies that can easily be replicated. The low-hanging fruits in outreach is gone, but then outreach is still working. Email is never going to die. Phone is never going to die. It's just going to get, I guess, the advantages or power is going to shift to people that are really good at it. Earlier, anybody could do outreach with just a automation tool. And these guys are the ones who are ruining or wrecking the channel for everybody.
And on the other hand, don't you think the AISDR is making it more worse?
Right. And the promise was they'll make it better, but they are scaling up the number of emails in a way. When humans send emails, there was still some, sanity, because you could see how many emails didn't deliver. But now that you have outsourced this to a machine, there's literally no sanity, right? Because they could send 10 times more emails and nobody's hurt in the process. So their incentives have gotten more perverse. I do think AISDRs will make at least outbound much worse. But what happens when outbound gets worse is good outbound agencies or good SD, the value of them becomes higher, right? It's the same thing. Chat GPT, people thought with Chat GPT, there's going to be no need for content marketers. What it did is there's no need for poor content marketers, but good content marketers, their value actually increased.
True. True. I mean, you can easily see whatever is written on the GPT and whatever is written
Right.
by a human, right? Now
Totally,
the
right?
distinction is clear. Yeah. I think this is right. I am reaching out to somebody without them even hearing about me. I mean, the social media, the content is the best way to warm up your prospects, right? You have been doing a great job. Adam has been doing a great job, right? And there's this agency, Code IQ. I want to give them shout out. They share pretty much good content, Alex and the team. So, I mean, that is the key. So that is a learning for all the founders or operators, or even if you are an SDR. If you create and share valuable insights, not the not the GPT driven, but the real valuable insights, people are going to notice you. People are going to hear you. And the next time you reach out to them, they would have already heard about you, right? So,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, just to follow up on what you said, if somebody provides value to me and then asks for getting on a call, my likelihood of giving my time is much higher because I already got benefit from this person, right? So the easiest way to do this is to provide insights, is to provide content, right? And if somebody reads the content and actually benefits in what they're doing, so this content has to be insightful, right? Now, the question is, how do you become insightful? So my recommendation would be to the best SDRs and best sales rep to pick a industry category and just work in that category. So even if you move jobs, see if you can get job to competitors in the same category. And so if you look at my career trajectory, I stayed in go-to-market companies, even though I've switched job every 2 years. And what that does is it gives me a level of expertise where I can gather insights and share something that's valuable. And everybody can do that. Now, if I switched from go-to-market to security company to a manufacturing giant, or then I'll lose track of. It's hard to keep up with every domain. But that's a simple career hack, and that's kind of the outreach. The best reps in future are going to be the ones that have true domain knowledge. And when they move from a sales rep moves from one company to another company, they'll carry their own audience to another company. And a lot of the customers would leave the previous one and join the new one, right? Because they would be creating that level of authenticity is going to be very important. And then the one other point, in the spirit of giving value, I think if you're an SDR or sales rep, I'm surprised not enough of them do this. They should just have office hours, like once a week, give up an hour of your time to help anybody else. It could be your peers, it could be your prospects, and if through your help they end up buying from your competitor, that's fine. You'll find that this investment will end up helping their career over time.
That's an amazing advice for all the folks out there. Santosh, I am planning on bringing in not only the CROs or the founders, but also the AEs and SDRs who have been nailing it, right? So that their peers can learn from it, right? And all the mistakes that they might have done, they can also learn from that as well, right? So yeah, that's a pretty solid advice that you gave, Santosh. So Santosh, as a founder, okay, before asking the question, when I thought of reaching out to you, I made this plan in November, 2024 of starting this podcast. And my thought that I had in head was that I will ask Santosh, if you were to start something today, what are the top 5 things that you will do? And by the time we are recording this in February 2025, we are already starting something, right? So what are the top 5 things that you do now where you're making sure that you are on a path to clearly achieve your KPIs that you have set in mind?
So as an entrepreneur or as a growth operative, so let me share what I do. I think getting a really good understanding of my audience, my customers, or who I'm going to sell to is really important. And people underestimate. I think a lot of professionals just stay at a shallow level, that I sell to VP marketing of enterprises. That's not at all detailed, but really getting understanding, because think about your buyer or your market as a living being, not as a static thing, because they're real people. They are reading content, they're changing their behavior, they're changing their habits. Staying close to them so you can really understand what trends, what pains they have in engaging with your service, what changes they're having in their habit that will eventually end up impacting you and other sellers is really important. And the way I stay, I guess, up to speed is by talking to my buyers or potential audience at least a few calls a week, and then asking questions that would really help me. So that's one. I think that would be useful to others. And then you asked what has changed. We are undergoing a period of transition. Everything is changing, right? The buyer behavior is changing. The entire economy is changing. There's so much changes going on. With AI, there's more changes coming in. So companies who are ahead of the changes will manage to not only survive, but benefit. And companies that are behind on the changes will kind of get destroyed. Or this is the time of nonlinear growth. If you are correctly positioned in your space, there's a lot to gain by making bets, right? And if you I'm just in go-to-market, there's a ton of changes happening. And for instance, you mentioned last quarter, I was reading a bunch of research reports. I read that point to change, right? I read that 79% of AEs in 2024 missed their quota. That's a very high number. That's like 8 out of 10 AEs, right? And SDRs, that included all sales professionals. And then about 80% of buyers are saying they'd rather not work with a salesperson. They want to buy on their own, right? Which is also a big problem or change. And then there is a churn is all-time high, right? So what that tells me is something is broken in this buying and selling that needs to be fixed. And I'm going to spend some time in the next few years try to fix this. But I do think now with ChatGPT and there's so much information around us, there's no excuse to not stay totally on top of your audience, of your buyer, of your trends, and really take the right bets.
Understood. So you rightly said about the definition of your buyer or your ICP has completely changed. It's not anymore your VP of a mid-market company in a particular region. It's more than that. Whether they are in the market in search of a similar service, whether they are hiring or whatever the signals tell me. There's a lot to defining your ICP now. And from my experience, I've been a founder 3 times. And these are the mistakes that I did was the piousness while speaking to my potential user was to ask or revolve more around the questions which were fulfilling my,
Right. Your bias or your understanding of the market, right?
Absolutely. How can somebody who is on a search and speaking to their potential customers get out of that bias in their head and actually get to the real value for which they are talking to the end user?
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because it's a cognitive bias that all of us deal with, right? And the real value is in knowing what you don't know, not in confirming what you already know, right? Or what you think you know, right? So to know what you don't know, you have to go beyond. So you're trying to understand from this research whether people are ready to buy what you're selling, right? Instead, if you really ask questions to understand like a day in the life of analysis, right? Or try to understand what does the buyer think, how do they get started, or watch them over their shoulder solve the problem, right? The more unprompted interviews you can do, because every prompt, every question that you ask already boxes them into an answer or a few potential answers, right? See if you can structure the interview without prompts by shadowing them or by asking very generic questions or really seeing their line of thought. That could lead you to some of the knowing what you don't know type response.
That's a fantastic advice, Santosh. Now, my next question is more about the people who are starting their journey in the new company, taking up a leadership role in the growth in the GTM as a revenue leader. What are the top priorities that should be on their mind? Because you have done this quite a few times in your career, right?
Sure. So you briefly mentioned ICP and signals and so on. I think the way to think about your buyers now is in terms of signals, right? And signals have become very easy to gather. So the right way to do outreach or think about their market is not just VP of marketing of $100 million company. It's about VP of marketings that have switched jobs in the last 6 months or have written on these topics on social, or companies that have raised funding or that are engaging with these following accounts. So come up with signals that can, and complex signals, and it doesn't have to be just one or two, but come up with 10 or 20 or you'll find that that's a much better kind of way to do outreach. Your conversion will go up dramatically. So these are the hacks. Like social signals is something that's going to stay for the time being. So that's one big, I would say, tactical, I guess, tactics that can be pursued for somebody new in the role. The second is, I'm repeating this, but getting the word out. Really, buyers have a problem. I look at it as a search engine problem, right? There's a serious cost for them to shift through all the options and to identify you as the right choice. So make the choice easier. So wherever they hang out, if they hang out in forums or LinkedIn or Twitter or other tools or events or conferences, just keep making it easier for them. At conferences, you have to buy booths and banners, and on Google, you have to buy search engine, but social network is free. So, and lastly, I think companies that grow, they have a sense of clarity. When buyers look at those brands, there's a sense of consistency, right? And clarity. So in 15 seconds, you look at their website and you understand what they do. And then you talk to somebody from the company, and in 15 seconds, you really understand what they do and why they do and why they're better. That level of consistency, a lot of companies fail to exhibit, which is another reason why they don't grow. Complexity doesn't grow. You have to figure out how to make everything easy to understand. Your product should be so easy that people can use it in few minutes, but continuously making your messaging, your products, your UX, your website, your content, everything easier and easier to understand, and staying consistent, the same message in all channels and everywhere, is also a path to growth.
So what you mean is getting the word out, be persistent, and set the context and the narrative right.
Right.
Okay. Santosh, for the sales folks also, I had this question. Like I said, when I wanted to reach out to you, I thought of inviting you over. This was again another question that I wanted to ask you. This is for the sales professionals, especially people in the AEs or SDR jobs. Is, let's say, a person was performing really well in company A, right? And the performance drastically drops in company B. Company A, we can say, was a very well-established company with a good revenue and good logos in their kitty, as compared to another company still making its mark, right? So most of the times I have heard people saying that you were not a good salesperson. It was just happening because you were in a right place, in a right ship, with the right set of people, with the right resources. How do you perceive that?
Yeah, that's a tricky question. There is some truth to it, not all, but so think about sales is a profession where, like any other skill, like sports, right? Like soccer, you play more, you get good at it, right? So you do sales. Now, when we say do sales, sales can be outbound, it can be field sales, it can be inbound, right? So each rep, based on their past experience, even their behavior, their chemistry, their biases, their knowledge about the space, they tend to get good at a few things and may not be good at, right? They may be good at inbound. Maybe they're not good at outbound, right? And then if they don't want to do outreach or do cold calling, but then inbound, when somebody comes in with knowledge, they're very good at delivering, or they're good at talking to enterprise customers that don't require 40 calls a day, right? Versus SMBs that require so longer sales cycle, versus some people are very good at shorter sales cycle, right? So reps, individuals have to understand, they really have to understand themselves, right? They can't just say, I'm good at sales. They really have to understand what part of sales are they good at, right? And sometimes you're right that if a company has certain brand, like you're trying to buy Apple iPhone that everybody knows versus a new SaaS tool where you have to actually educate, right? So it does change the way you operate as a salesperson. I think good sales reps become good at all different aspects. If you're junior earlier in your career, it's easy to think you're good at sales, but not. It's again. I used to play soccer or football when I was young, right? So, in soccer, you could be a forward, you could be a goalkeeper, you could be playing defense, right? You can't say that I'm just good at soccer, and you can be good at all positions. So the same applies to sales reps. I think one has to really understand themselves and what their skills are, and under what circumstance do they perform well, and maybe take jobs where it enhances their strengths.
Understood. I tell you the reason why I asked you this question. For most of the leaders, this has been a problem, right? This has been a problem with myself also. When I was an operator for a very short stint, I had a few SDRs who were performing well in maybe another company, but then I saw a few of them were struggling
Okay.
with the product I was dealing with, right? We had to dive deeper into that because it was impacting my quotas for that quarter, right? That this person in his previous job or in his previous role has crushed his quotas or her quotas, but with me, there's some problem. Am I the problem? Is the company problem? Is the person problem? Where's the red flag? So this is one of the most important problem as a leader that you have to solve, right? So that's why I wanted to ask your view on this, Santosh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ultimately, I feel like there's nothing in sales that if somebody is good at one, they can't learn and be bad at, or you know. But having said that, yeah, it does require. Oftentimes, in my experience, or the situation you're describing is because somebody was good at working in a certain environment, and then the new environment does not replicate exactly the old environment, and then it starts exposing some weakness in the candidates, and people try to hide their weakness, and they should be learning and coaching, and the new environment should provide the right coaching opportunity or learning opportunity so they can catch up to the gaps. But yeah, it's common. It's actually more common than you would imagine. Most people just put in the hard work and early on their career, and they have perspective. They figure out how to fill in the gap. But the ones that don't, or the ones that are, say, younger in their career, yeah, they end up, I guess, for managers such as yourself, yeah, this can become a problem.
Understood. Santosh, so we walked from your journey, then your next startup that you are building, which is still in stealth. Best wishes to you for that.
Thank you.
And yeah, and advice for the founders and then operators and even for SDRs and AEs, right? So we have covered most of the aspects. So I can say anybody who belongs to sale, who belongs to go to market or growth or revenue should definitely listen to this. Okay. So Santosh, now I will be asking you a quick rapid fire kind of questions. Are you ready for that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay, start. One sales myth that needs to die.
This is not rapid fire. I need more time. So, one sales myth, I think the best sales reps are not the ones that sell better. They're the ones that help the buyers buy better.
Understood. One GTM trend that's overhyped.
I think outbound email is certainly overhyped. There are many other GTM trends that arguably has better conversion, but still we keep sending billions of emails every day.
Understood. Best advice that you have ever received in your career.
So these are I didn't think about these before. I think here is the best advice I have received. I think every business can grow tremendously. All you have to do is remove friction. It's like every plant wants to grow. You just have to let the sun come in and let it have access to water, and it just naturally grows. Every human wants to grow, and every business wants to grow. We try to force growth through growth hacks or growth tactics. Instead, what we should be doing is removing all hurdles to growing, to natural growth or organic growth.
I know these don't sound like rapid fire, but still gold for people who are going to listen to this. Okay, the next one book or resource every growth leader should refer to.
So I don't necessarily read a lot of growth books. I have benefited from, I used to be a product manager before and ran growth teams. I did use Reforge or other frameworks that you can find. And there's a ton of now forums and resources online that people can find.
Okay, and the last one. Person who has been behind all the top tools and platforms of the global GTM industry. What's the tech stack that Santosh uses? Everybody wants to know, I know.
Well, I'm starting my company. So my tech stack is going to be pretty like low-end tools. But so I'm in the process of building my tech stack. So if you ask this question maybe 3 months later, I can give you a more, detailed response. But I can tell you how I'm thinking about it. So I'm going to use tools like Fathom instead of Gong. So kind of less expensive tools. I'm going to use tools, the ones that help me do cold emails, outreach, including the companies I worked for in the past. But I will focus more on social and signals and intelligence. I'll focus on reaching out to a few people, but going deep rather than reaching out to a lot of people.
Understood.
With very shallow message.
Understood. Wonderful that, Santosh, you gave us time and shared so many insights today. I'm really thankful to you for this. I know I'm really new in my podcast journey, and thank you for being an early believer. And it was really great. I hope you had the same time interacting with me.
Yeah, I enjoy the conversations, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks. You too. Have a good one.